out there in TV land can see what it looks like. Great colors, very strong color use, great design. So kudos to Wiley for doing all that. I assume it's them and not you. So, Ken, tell us about quickly. The original book was what, 15 years ago, and now this one's just out now.
Yeah, time flies. We all must be having a good time, right? 15 years ago, I did the book Performance Appraisals and Appraisals for Dummies. And it was really a rather different world back then in terms of providing feedback to employees. The world is different in so many different ways. The workplace has certainly changed. Management, leadership has certainly changed. I mean, back then, appraisals were often once a year. It was easy for employees to get stressed out over them and for managers to do likewise. And a lot of key behaviors that are so important today were not fully emphasized or focused on back then. So it was time to update it and provide information on the newest steps and strategies that are now in today's book. So the folks at Wiley came back to me after all these years and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a new edition? And I said, absolutely. The world has changed, and I think it would be very helpful to have an update on that area and this important topic.
So there's a lot of talk about mandates. I saw in the press today that some big company, I can't remember the name right now, I just read about it maybe an hour ago, is mandating a return to office. It was headline, New York Times headline came across about an hour ago, but I can't remember the firm name. So there's a big divide out there in corporate America about what to do, mandating people. Now they're doing that maybe to get rid of people because they know there's going to be some people leaving, and so the companies are sort of staking out their ground, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had put in, even in the new book, a section on working remotely, as well as on managing folks, leading folks who are working outside of the office. But in terms of mandates to come back to work, this is going to be an individual corporate decision. In some organizations and areas, it makes sense, and in others, it really doesn't. And yes, there'll be some turnover, some voluntary, some involuntary. A lot of today's younger folks in the workforce, some of the millennials and all, would prefer to have a hybrid kind of work environment. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And this is not obviously the only conflict that's going on in today's workplaces, and it's incumbent upon leadership to try to identify whatever the conflicts may be and at least try to pull a team together and work in ways that everyone can get to the overall agreed upon goals.
Would you agree with me that, and it's okay to disagree, but would you agree with me? I believe that most of the people who are going to walk away will be women because most women want to have either hybrid or remote.
I really don't know in today's world. I don't like to say what women will do versus what men will do. Uh, there are a lot of women in positions where the men are doing more of the domestic side of it. I think in today's world, I think we just have to go individual by individual. To me, I wouldn't stereotype it and say that oh, the women's are going to be the ones who want the hybrid. I'm certainly not seeing that just in today's workplaces. Males and females are quite satisfied by having the opportunity to work on a hybrid basis. So I will say I'm not really sure. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Ron, what
Yeah.
do you think?
I can't say that I have seen that. It may be very localized in various regions within localities around the world. But I can't see that. Ed, there's not a disagreement. I just personally have not seen it where women are more likely to want any particular role. I do believe that. I mean, there's certainly some females who just want to be recognized that, hey, I can function in a man's world kind of thing, just as a very broad statement.
Okay. All right, Ken, I want to give you the microphone to tell us about the book. and
Sure, thank you. Maybe the easiest
what
thing
it's
to
all
do
about.
is, yeah, let me walk through a quick PowerPoint presentation with you. I think that would be the easiest way to do this, provided that we have technological cooperation today.
Well, it's looking good,
It
Meg.
is always a
There we go.
risk, but we'll see. Let's do this slideshow from the beginning, which is a good place to start. Sounds like the sound of music. Yeah, here's just the introduction, introductory page. And Ed, thank you for having the cover up there. There's a big difference in today's performance appraisals. Let me just run through some of the changes that have occurred over the past 15 years. One is a real movement away from the annual appraisals. Companies are, when they're doing formal appraisals, are moving now to quarterly or biannual. There's some good reasons for it. I think we all remember with annual appraisals where employees come in and the manager sits there. Basically, it's a ritual, or they're giving some feedback. Remember, 4 months ago when you did this, I really think it would have been better if you did that. The employee's upset, the feedback is meaningless. The manager is stressed out having to talk about stuff like that. It's old news, and it really takes on minimal value for this annual thing to come up. So the movement now is toward quarterly or biannual, but importantly, there's more to it, and that's with continuous feedback. And that doesn't mean being a helicopter manager. It means formally, regularly meeting managers and individual employees, meeting perhaps every week or 2 weeks at the most, to just talk about performance and issues and interests and questions and career development, coaching and training along the way. So it's now very different. And when that appraisal arises, let's say we're doing it quarterly, there are no surprises. That's what was going on with these annual appraisals. I thought I was doing a good job. And now here we are 8 months later, and I'm getting this feedback saying, I'm kind of average. I thought I was doing really well. No, well, you needed to have training in this, you needed to take these steps. With continuous feedback, which is now being more and more used widely, it stops that whole problem and it builds employee performance, employee satisfaction, productivity, as well as a relationship with the manager. So now when we do these formal sessions, they are productive and they can be more forward focused. We don't have to go at what an employee did 6 months ago. So that's another key development. And it's tied in with two-way communication, where there's far more back and forth, real discussion, conversation, respect, trust between managers, leaders, and their employees. It's not one way. You think of the old appraisals, kind of tended to be one way. Here's what you did, here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong. Okay, so it happened months ago. And that's not communicating, that's not building, that's not productively enhancing the individual satisfaction and ultimately the employee's performance. So the feedback that you provide, this doesn't mean we can't tell people they're not doing well. And that's part of what continuous feedback is. Hey, I noticed on this project, this didn't go the way we had planned. This came up short. Let's talk about what happened and feed forward. Let's talk about how we can fix this going down the road. What steps can be taken? So now performance appraisals have a strong undercurrent of coaching. And that's important to remember as well. Career development. We know that today's younger employees, certainly Gen Z, certainly the millennials, are interested in career development. Well, that's a great opportunity in performance appraisals to work with employees on that. And sometimes when employees are not performing well, it's a matter of, well, wait a minute, let's really talk about the career path here and where this is going. And if this is really the right direction for you and the right opportunity in this company. And if it is, there's some training we can talk about. Here's some classes, here's some programs, here's some webinars, here's some podcasts that can help you. So we are interested, as are the employees, in their career development and growth. The old appraisals, no, here's what you did wrong, here's what you got to improve, let's get out there and do it. As opposed to let's team on this thing and let's work on areas that are of bona fide interest to you. And this means in these sessions, avoiding the common mistakes. So when we do these appraisal sessions, quarterly or biannual, we're not having interruptions. I'm not sitting there saying, oh, wait a minute, let me see this email. Hold on, I have to talk. Looking the other way, allowing employees to come in, hey, sorry to bother you, Ken. no interruptions, no distractions, truly listening, letting the employees talk, in other words, engaging in active listening. And this book shows all the key steps to take to make this happen. And outcome is that we see improvements with these kinds of approaches, with this kind of management style in satisfaction, employee recognition, which is a strong motivator, building collaboration between employees and their team, building motivation, building performance. And then finally, just how do you follow up on doing this? And that's in terms of continuous feedback, resetting of goals, updating goals, being agile in the goal setting process. Things change, and that we can adjust the goals, we can add new goals. If employees are not performing well consistently, what do? We've gone through all these above points, still not happening. If we need to, we get to a performance improvement plan, also called a PIP, and the book shows how to put those together. About 70% of employees improve, according to SHRM, after having such plans and participating in them. And at the same time, it really lets the employees know it's really time to step up. And there are spelled out goals, dates, deadlines, and consequences in a decent and fairly written PIP that helps employees in that regard. So these are just highlights of the key improvements that we now see in today's appraisals. I can talk more specifically about the book in one more slide, but questions or comments before we move on, please.
How do you watch an employee perform in order to come up with these improvements, as you call them? Because I mean, how do you know what's going on?
Yeah, ideally, if the employee is on site and you're on site, it's the old concept of managing by wandering around. Again, this is not hovering, what are you doing, what are you doing? But maintaining regular formal and informal contact. And the same thing applies even if the employee is remote, through sessions like this, through continuous feedback, through more than just continuous feedback, if necessary, just informal. Hey, Ron, I want to chat with you later today or tomorrow if you have a few minutes just to catch up. It's been a week and a half. In other words, we can do this virtually as well. And unfortunately, we're looking at performance and results. We have benchmarks on the various projects, dates, deadlines, key points of interest, and we're tracking how that's going. And if we see the employee, just from the performance standard, is falling a little behind, we want to make sure we touch base even more frequently than once every couple of weeks. And if they're doing well, seize that opportunity to say, hey, I noticed that you're even ahead, and frankly, the results are looking better. Great work, keep it up. So that's really what we're doing by maintaining regular communication that's two-way, regular and respectful two-way communication.
Yeah, and I'll offer an observation here. And Ed, I use maybe slightly different terms. Instead of watching an employee, what am I doing to observe? And I use frequently the term data points, and it is assessing to a degree. But let's say if my mindset, and let's just for the sake of this conversation, let's assume I am a senior to Ken and Ed. Hopefully I portray to you, my persona is I am fully invested in your growth. And if that is my mindset, every conversation at the coffee bar, every lunchtime can be an observation for growth. And so I might ask you at some point, hey, Ken, can I just offer an observation to you? And it is feedback, but in that context, it's more so advice. I'm not trying to parse terms. Feedback frequently is, in the context of constructive feedback, well, there's going to be something negative with this, but if I can just offer an observation with you, actually, Ken, Ed, we can both learn together with this because I'm very interested in your perspective. And if I know you're coachable and teachable, we're both going to learn from this, and we are growing together as a team. That's a very operative term for me, but I need to know, and as your senior person, I'm invested, hopefully, in your personal growth, and I want to know if you're coachable and teachable. Should our values not align, then we may have to have a discussion of whether you're the right person for this company. But anyway, I want to portray that I am fully invested in your growth. That's just a little bit about who I am, Ken.
Yeah, and that ties in with exactly what's going on in the newer approach to performance appraisal. We are fully invested. I think the word growth, I don't know how many times it's used in the book, very, very important. And that's what we're talking about. Forward feedback, we're talking about feed forward, we're talking about coaching. All of that is designed to help employees learn, grow, develop, advance their careers. And I totally agree with the approach that you're taking. And it's a coaching kind of model.
And
Ken,
I'm going to say, just very briefly, Ed, just how effective we are as leaders with those who are coachable and teachable is retention rates. That's one thing, and but it's growing together. But that's just one way that I assess how effective we are working as a team.
Oh, absolutely. Retention rates are related to satisfaction. And if employees are dissatisfied, they are more likely to be absent and to turnover. And so what are we doing to satisfy, to help build their level of satisfaction? And certainly with their interest in learning and growth and development, we are meeting some very high level needs. It's interesting, studies on job satisfaction, satisfied employees are not necessarily more productive. They're not, hey, I'm real satisfied here. I'm happy, I'm talking, I'm not doing any work. It's a great place. As opposed to productive employees tend to feel more satisfied. So we want to make sure we're enabling our employees, our team, as individuals and on a team basis to be productive and effective and sense achievement and growth and development on their own and as they continue with us on this job and in their various roles.
well, a lot here. Ken, let's go back to the line, providing constructive feedback and feed forward with an emphasis on coaching. Define feed forward for me, please.
Sure. Feedback is looking back at past performance and providing coaching and guidance, but then we move to the whole process is more forward focused, and feed forward is really giving them not only some specific tools to build their skills and enhance their performance, but also to provide them with guidance in terms of additional steps that they can take to continue to develop their skills on their own. So it's taking whatever may need some improvement and providing them with the guidance that they need, hands-on from the manager, as well as saying, hey, look, there's some great programs, there's some great books, there's some great steps you can take to continue. So how do I go down the road? How do I go forward on the path to continue growth and development? Managers are providing employees with that kind of guidance as they proceed. So it's not just here it is, do this and go on, but feed forward continues throughout the continuous feedback process in helping the employees learn, grow, and develop.
Ron?
I'll offer an aspect on the feed forward, Ken, because I really like everything you're saying here. The feed forward, to me, also incorporates my strengths or those of your staff and a purpose. So do those on your staff know their purpose, their strengths, and how those purposes and strengths align with those of the company? So feed forward is a matter of aligning our individual strengths with the company strategic goals and objectives, and we want to bring on and hire those people that align with our values and want to learn and want to be progressed. And so as we are feeding forward those aspects, we're helping those perform and be more productive toward the company goals. And quite honestly, from a financial perspective, virtually every employee on our staff is a financial liability. That is, we've got to bring in revenue to be able to support their salary, and we will get repeat business and new business if everyone knows exactly how they fit with their strengths and those of the company's strategic goals.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Part of the process, certainly in the goal setting aspect, which is done during that follow-up stage, and it's used as one of the key metrics in evaluating performance. But as we do that, the goals are by design in alignment with the organization's goals. That's really where the goals should be focused. And that's just part of the key element of this process, so that we're not just having random goals or disconnected goals, but there is an alignment to the process as well. So yeah, totally agreed with that. And in the section in the book that deals with following up, goal setting, the process of setting, if you will, professional goals as well as personal goals, developmental goals. So we really talk about both of those, and they underlie much of this process in terms of how we look at how employees are performing, and frankly, how they look at how they're performing as well.
Ken, let me ask you this in the context of maybe feed forward, but some other aspects of your book. There are some on our staff who are very reserved. They don't talk a whole lot. They sit at the desk, the cube, wherever they are, and they are, let's just say, productive and efficient, but they don't say a whole lot. And that's just how some reserved people are. And so then we might, as being in a leadership role, we might need to create a culture or environment where these they may be reticent, but at least they are reserved people. We want to give them an opportunity to speak up. And I have found in many environments, one-on-one, these people can totally open up and even I want to say be dominant in a very positive, useful way in conversations. But when they're in the presence of two or three others, they may revert to being very reserved. But I want to create that kind of environment where we can have some very open and productive conversations. I would hope that everybody on my staff can say, I feel better after being with you, Ken.
Yeah, and that's where the continuous feedback really helps. If the individual is more reserved, a little bit more introverted, those one-on-ones at least can help build the relationship, a collaborative relationship. And as the employee gets more comfortable, the likelihood of opening up a bit more down the road, and frankly, as managers, as leaders, to reinforce that if an employee does that after the meeting, hey, Ron, I noticed you really jumped in at the meeting today and made some great points. I want to continue. I'd like to encourage you to continue doing that. You really handled those questions well. In other words, people will repeat behaviors that are rewarded. So when we see if that person is a little more reticent, but does step a little bit out of the shell, to reinforce it. And the employee will say, I kind of like that kind of feedback. People do like receiving recognition and positive feedback. So that's on the other side of it. And it's interesting, you mentioned, you're looking at employees as liabilities. I know the other side is, and how can we turn them into assets? And so that's as we continue to build them and their knowledge, their expertise, their skills, they are increasing their value to the organization. So in that sense, we're looking at it from both of those lenses and building, and that's where this appraisal process can definitely help.
And Ken, what you just said moments ago, who knows? It took you 13 to 18 seconds to tell me, wow, what you just said was very thought stimulating, very perceptive on your part. 13 to 18 seconds. Wow, boy, I feel like I can, that just piqued my performance for the rest of the day, just that 13 to 18 second comment. But what you're giving me some very valuable assessment, feedback, or feed forward on my value to this company. I said, man, I'm in this.
Hearing that, the 18-second statement from a jet pilot, which Ron is, warms my heart. Oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That means a lot to me, Ron. It really does. Thank you.
I need to ask Ken to add a comment about the issue of trust, or it's not an issue, it's a situation. In your writings that I've read in preparation for our talk later today, I was reading about you, and you work very, very hard to make sure that the atmosphere and the setting adds to people trusting you as a leader.
I think we all agree that trust is critical to effective leadership, to effectively working in an organization. And frankly, your word has to be your word, and to deal with others in an honest, above board, fair, reliable, trusting, and trustworthy way are critical steps to take. And without trust, we're going to have minimal commitment, performance, productivity, loyalty. It's a key factor. Respect and trust are two critical factors for leaders to demonstrate in an organization, and fully respectful of the employees and being trustworthy and showing them that you trust them. And that's just a solid underpinning of an effective organization. And without it, things are going to trip and fall, without a doubt. You will not see employees generating the kind of loyalty and reliability and commitment that makes organizations successful today. So yeah, respect and trust, critical components.
Let me ask you, Ken, from a leader perspective, trust, respect, loyalty, do we need to give that before we can expect it?
I think we do. I think that we have to show that we are individuals who can be fully trusted and that we treat our employees with respect. But if we see, my goodness, an employee said that this or that was being done and the employee has not been forthright with us, then that's something we talk about, and we try and build on that, being ethical, honest, valuing the inputs and ideas of others. All of that comes into aspects of respect, and that's part of what we're looking for as leaders, and trying to build a climate and culture that fosters those kinds of behaviors going forward.
And I'll just give you some of my perspective on the aspect of trust. I am the type person that on a 10-point scale, I will just automatically assign you a 10-point on the scale of trust. And you'll have to work your way backward if that were to happen. I hope it doesn't. But I want to trust you that, Ken, I will trust you. I just automatically do that. I've been burned a few times, as likely all of our listeners have been burned at some point. But I am a believer we've got to give what we expect from others: trust, respect, loyalty. They need to see that in us before we can necessarily expect it from them. That's just my perspective on that aspect of leadership.
Totally agree. As leaders, we are models, and how can we expect behaviors from others that we don't demonstrate ourselves? And if we're being untrustworthy or skeptical or overly negative or questioning, how can we expect our team to show any other behaviors? In fact, as role models, they're going to behave in the same way. And it's interesting when you look at leadership styles of individuals in managerial positions today, one of the primary influences on how they lead their team goes back to the very first manager/managers that they had in their career. All that heavy duty learning went on, and a lot of it stays with them. So we have to remember, we're role models at every point, and the behaviors that we're demonstrating are clearly going to impact the behaviors and ultimately the performance of those on our team.
Let me ask you this, Ken, without any attempt to dominate the conversation, but you address micromanaging, and and I want to ask you this in the context of trust. If we, as a style, and it may even be an aspect of how we manifest our individual insecurities, but if we micromanage people, that is, we're almost always, let's say, over the shoulder, if not literally, we're figuratively over the shoulder watching a person and so forth, and that person has the feeling that, oh, you're micromanaging me, you're not giving me any space here at all, you're not even allowing me to think on my own, apparently you don't trust me. Is that, have you seen that in action, Ken? Is that a part of how we need to help develop our employees to grow?
Ron, you're exactly right. When people are being micromanaged, it is a negative experience for them, particularly with today's workforce, where there is more interest in having some independence and being able to demonstrate some creative thinking. Micromanaging is really sending the message, I got to keep my eye on you. And even if that's not the intent, I'm just trying to be a careful and thorough and detail-minded manager and make sure I know what my team is doing. So even if the intent is lofty, the message is, you don't trust me, and I'm not able to engage in individual creative thinking, show some initiative, go into new directions, that everything I have to do is in a box, and people do not respond well to that. And it reflects negatively on us as managers if we're doing that. So it is not positively received at all. It's really looked at as you said, a lack of trust and frankly, a lack of respect. If you really respected me, you wouldn't be on my case all the time. You wouldn't be here all the time. I want to have in a position where I sense that I have responsibility and opportunity to achieve and to learn and advance and grow. And you don't feel that way if someone's in your back pocket all the time.
Right on.
Ken, we have a few minutes left. I'd like to go to a couple of pages here in your book and alert the audience to chapter 15, page 327. The headline is Top 10 Behaviors Meriting Special Recognition. And if you could just quickly comment on some of these things. Now, these are some behaviors, I guess. Acting honestly, collaborating with others, communicating effectively, exceeding goals, going the extra mile, handling work with agility, maintaining a genuinely positive attitude, pursuing upskilling, solving problems, thinking creatively. There's a lot of stuff there. I'm sorry to lay all this on you, Ken, but these are things that you're going to measure people against, right?
Well, yes and no. They're really more coaching kinds of topics. In other words, these are 10 behaviors for you to think about. And if there's a way for you to include them in your managerial style and ultimately in the reviews and the performance appraisals that you're providing, it will help the individuals to reinforce behaviors if they're engaging in them, if they're engaging in collaborative behavior, and if they're acting honestly, you're reinforcing that. At the same time, it also helps prompt them to continue and or develop behaviors in those areas. So it's not like ironclad must include these 10. There's nothing like that in the book. These are suggestions for behaviors to be thinking about as you provide your employees with feedback and try to help them as they go down the road to growth. And upskilling is a popular word, is enhancing the skills of your team, which we as managers can do literally in sessions with them to show them some tips and strategies, as well as focusing on their continuing their formal and informal education, development, and growth. So a popular word today is upskilling, building their skills in key areas. And that, as we look out in the world today, we all at any level need to be doing that in order to maintain our effectiveness and relevance in not only in the workplace, but frankly in life. So yeah, those are behaviors. Again, I know the dummies books like to have sections, 10 key behaviors or 10 key somethings to help you improve your skills in a particular area. And these are just 10 behaviors that can be helpful to take a look at for your team, and when appropriate, put them in the performance eval or even in the continuous feedback that you're providing.
We have about 5 minutes remaining here in this edition. On page 302, there's a headline that caught my eye because of some of the things that Stephen Howard has been talking about in Humany. And that is here on page 302 in boldface, engaging in career planning. In other words, that's like being a coach, right? It's like being really upfront and say, now, what are you going to do forward with, paying it forward for yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it ties in with what Ron was saying about coaching and growth, career planning. We know from research that certainly today's millennials and others in the younger side of the workforce specifically have expressed interest in career development. They want to engage in workplaces and work in jobs where there is a career focus going on. So here as leaders, we want to try to help them focus on the most effective steps they can take to accurately identify, and help pursue a career direction. This is not to lock them in on a path at all. There can be a number of career directions early on in the game, but as leaders, as managers, we want to help our team, members of the team identify what those might be and to help them engage in the behaviors, steps, and strategies to move closer to those goals. And it's quite motivational to them to see, hey, this company has some interest in my career. What a concept, as opposed to get it done today, get it, you know, very different look. We're looking down the road with our employees to see if we can help them, coach them to grow and get to the careers and pursue and fulfill the career goals that they're starting to shape at this point in their careers.
Ken, do you want to sum up by giving people a website or information how to reach you?
Yeah, the book became available on Amazon.com yesterday. And certainly, if they're interested, they can also go to www.dummies.com, write in the title of the book, and see a lot of information on it. And that's those are just additional steps. The book does have, just real quickly here, just super fast. The book's got over 3,300 phrases to help managers in writing these reviews. Again, not cast in stone, but they'll help you. And as you mentioned, 10 key behaviors are also key words. They're also online, 3 bonus chapters that deal with gathering the data and setting up, as we talked about briefly, professional goals and career goals. And as I mentioned, www.dummies.com. And now we are coming back to somewhere here, the site. But that's really where we are. Again, available today for those who are interested. And the area has changed. And for those of us who are doing performance appraisals, it's always nice to stay current. And that's why I appreciate the opportunity from Wiley to update the book, and from you, Ed, to invite me on the program, and certainly for Ron to be here, for whom I have great respect, and he knows that, and trust. And I appreciate your very, very helpful insights and comments, frankly, from both of you today.
Ken, as a member, you're a member of Global Press Club, and this means that you're welcome to be on practically every show that I'm producing going forward. And you are welcome to come back and to go into a specific deep dive on one of the chapters in particular, so we could add value to the readers and the audience out there going forward on a continuous basis. I thank you very much for sharing all of this information, and I'll be sending you both the somewhat edited productions later in the day today. Ron, I will get back to you about your 5 p.m., my 2 p.m. today, and we'll send you that link.
Sounds great.
Okay, I thank you very much, guys. I've got to run to an outside appointment. Thank you.
Thanks very much to both of you. Really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Have a great day.
Thank you. The
Thank
same
you.
to you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thanks.